Greetings, Internet. Not DDA here for Random Number Gaming, as we have the Cincinnati Slobberknocker champion.
Yay!
Azarith. Yeah, he's played a control deck, learned from the best.
Yeah, how do people do that?
Long event, and we have here the long-awaited deck profile video for our Black Mischievous Bardock, expertly tuned and refined by yours truly, Azarith Strive.
Yeah, so this deck actually started off with, before the Villainous Bowl, I was like, let's make Mischievous Bardock, and let's just put in all the cards that like control your opponent's hand, do nothing, get to level 3, and just kind of do that. Then we realized that that deck doesn't do anything. And then with the help of Didier and Ryan here, we actually turned this into kind of the monster that it is now, with a lot more anger, a lot more proactive play, a lot less reactive, which I like as a control deck. I don't like waiting for my opponent to respond, like for my opponent to make me respond. I like to kind of proactively and preemptively get into the meat of my deck and kind of getting rid of issues that I need to. Bardock does that really well with his level 1, being able to search for a card and destroy it, so you can get rid of some really key cards. And then his powers to just shoot off of his level 1 and 2, being able to gain an anger from the Retribution Mastery, from Unleashed, Blue Lunge, as I found out against Nick Glasser. And then Bardock's level 3, in my opinion, might be sneakily an S tier level 3, with his power to just kind of destroy 3 and then skip.
Not only is it deck knowledge, but it's also stripping away some of the best cards that decks are relying on to succeed.
Yeah, and then running it with Mischievous Mastery, just because Bardock allows you to play the game with perfect knowledge. Mischievous Mastery always has the kind of coin toss of, am I going to hit a card when I don't need to, giving them that free draw. But just playing the game with perfect knowledge allows you to make the optimal decision of when to mastery, what to hope to mastery for, and then Bardock's milling with anger on level 2 just turns your mastery into 2 anger. Like, it's so strong.
Mm-hmm. So with that, we're going to move on. And what is our first step that we're going to do?
Moving on to the attacks.
And let's do the attacks for Black Mischievous Bardock.
Alright, so starting off with our attacks, we're running very few 3-ofs, but the 3-ofs that we're running are incredibly crucial.
It is so good.
3 Black Swirls.
Which are alright when you know the hand.
Yeah.
It's alright, you're going to guess a card.
Having perfect knowledge with Black Swirl is so strong. Like, I always felt comfortable having that card in my hand after I'm off level 1, or even when I'm on level 1, because I can get knowledge.
Yep, and the 2 anger does, wonder things of shooting off our early levels.
Yeah, 2 anger is very relevant.
The one card you run a 3 of that I have found myself just cutting directly from my black decks.
Black Defensive Burst.
But, against these physical decks, you're worried about them. They're always going to hold on to their blocks. But, I mean, like, when you're a Perfect Knowledge deck, I mean, like...
Yeah, Black Defensive Burst actually... in a deck that I ran before, I didn't run Black Defensive Burst in it, and it was, like, just mind-gaming my opponent of, do I play it? But no, you need to run that card.
You can run it in most decks, especially now that people are realizing that Resourceful Brawly is a good deck.
This card was MVP against Resourceful Brawler.
Yeah.
In my final match, which we did record, so you'll get to see that. D-Burst too strong.
You get to see the whole top cut with Az.
Yeah. Then 3 Sinister Chokes.
Again, I feel like we've reiterated a few times, but like, Perfect Knowledge is pretty good when you're coming through with this 5.
Yeah, and there's still enough decks out there that are playing enough board. I actually triggered the 7 threshold a lot.
Yeah.
And always made my opponent aware of it. Like, they always had to play around that 7 card threshold.
And sometimes they couldn't, and that just like hard punished them. So with the Perfect Knowledge and being able to fight there's a lot more boards that we thought. So Choke is very, very good card. AK probably could have been a card here as well, but basically you have Perfect Knowledge and it does the exact same thing for 1 more life card.
Yeah, and the reason that I couldn't do AK is I needed to have crit thresholds in here and also the anti-control. So that's why Choke made it in over AK. Right. Also, no stages as opposed to 2 stages.
Well, I guess you're like kind of weak. But...
Yeah, Bardock's not real strong until he hits level 3 and 4.
And then we go down to some of these 2-ofs that are really, really good. We start off with one of the better cards in the deck.
Bardock's Riot Javelin might be my favorite card in this deck, just because it's so fun. Being able to just search your opponent's deck, destroy a card, so either on 1 or 2 you're getting an anger. Being able to grab like cards like Sinister Choke, which is what I did in my top 4 match against
I was about
Radiant
to say.
Tommy, was real strong when he's like, I have like 13 cards on the board. I'm like, I'll just go steal your Sinister Choke.
And do damages. It was really awesome play.
Yeah, I love Bardock's Riot Javelin.
And then we've got Dev Blow, again, just one of the better cards. And in a deck like this, where you have perfect knowledge and you want to be able to make sure all the answers are dealt with, I think this card 100% came into strong effect against top 8 red Ascension.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like the combo that it makes with the level 3 of I'm going to search for 3 cards, then you're going to skip, and then I'm going to Dev Blow those 3 cards. It's real strong.
Yeah.
I love that combo. But yeah, that card was really... That and one other card were really imperative in my top 8 match against Dave.
Yeah. And then we go over here. One of my favorite cards that a lot of people didn't run, but it's sneakily one of the better board hate cards that you have in black is a Black Destruction Blast.
It's not as relevant right now, just because there's not a lot of like super board that it's like, oh god, if I don't get it off the board now, like that's a problem. But it being only 1 stage cost, does 3 life, so whatever. But it gives an anger too. It can be relatively strong. You can also, like, if you're worried, Black Destructive Blast your own like visit, so that they can't kill it.
Yeah.
And then it comes back. You can just kind of do some sneaky plays like that.
Yeah, the best ones are with drills, but unfortunately...
I run no drills.
No drills, because you level too much.
Yeah, this deck levels incredibly fast.
Yeah. And then we go over here, one of the better cards in Black Overhead Burst.
Yeah, it's literally only in here because it says raise your anger 2 levels.
And it's a pretty good combo with Black Command, which we'll get to later, but yes.
And it does 5 life, so you still threaten a crit.
Yeah, being able to get a crit effect too is really good, but overall, 2 angers really strong.
Then Black Palm Blast. This is a new card from set 10. I really, really like this card. Raise your anger 1, lower your anger 1, does 6. And if your opponent prevents it, like, you get to shuffle it back in. Yeah. This deck doesn't have a lot of ways to shuffle its own deck, so having that access is real nice. And then 1 endurance, always nice.
Always good. And then we go over here, we run...
Blinding Energy move, because we're a control deck.
It's the best card in the game.
Because that card's really, really, really good.
Yeah, and then we go over here and run this trash card that everybody says is like, shouldn't run in your decks anymore because there's so many answers.
No, I definitely agree. Wallbreaker's terrible, and it makes me feel bad that I have to play it. But because we're Bardock...
And we have, not even Bardock, because we're black and have, no anger tech. Because as you can see, we're missing a card that everybody puts in their black decks. It's like Black Trick Shot because
but so we have to run Wallbreaker, but because we're Bardock, we have so much access to their deck, we can get rid of their answers and then Wallbreaker them when we need to, which is what this actually ended up being my MPPV of MVP.
Many games.
MVP of pretty much almost every game that I played today. Because I stuck Resourceful Brawly on level 1 because he couldn't get anger and I killed his Unleashed. I stuck it on an Ascension Trunks after I killed all of his answers on level 3, and I just didn't give him access to cards into his discard pile, and it just sealed the games for me. That card was so strong.
So that's what I say about it. It's like, obviously this isn't the best card. This isn't like I plugged Wallbreaker in my deck and I have every answer.
Yeah.
But it has the ability to come out and on top.
I played Dave in Swiss and didn't see Wallbreaker, and I lost. I played him in Top Cat, saw Wallbreaker, and I won. So
it tells you it's not the best card to stop anger, but it is a good pacifier.
Yeah, it's slow. It gives you enough time to stabilize and kind of get the game back under control.
Yeah. So not a healthy amount of attacks, but the ones that are getting played are very impactful.
Yep.
So let us move on now to the events
and blocks. All right, so going into our events, we're running a lot of events, but less than I thought I was originally. So starting off with Stare Down, because we're villains and Stare Downs are really good, and you have perfect knowledge, so you know when to Stare Down, what to Stare Down. Sometimes, I would have a Stare Down in my hand, but because I'm Bardock, I see their hand, and I'm like, I don't need to use this right now. I'm going to wait until they draw from my mastery, and then Stare Down what they draw. So really, really strong card that you should always run.
Yep.
One card you will notice is missing from my events is Fear, because I don't need it.
I don't think you really need Sphere.
I didn't need a Sphere all day.
One of the better cards that deals with stuff like that is like Swirl.
Yeah, it's Black
Perfect
Swirl.
Knowledge. So like Sphere's not like the most impactful card.
Hands down, 100%.
So
then going into these beautiful cards made, holy crap, Black Taunt with Perfection foiling.
Like that you see
so beautiful. But Black Taunt is a freaking monster. That card was my favorite card to play all day. I was hitting Ascension Trunks for a mill 5, shuffle their hand in, draw a mill another card. When you're on level 2, it's 3 anger. Like, it's insane. That card, and it can turn a really crazy hand for your opponent into a bad hand.
Yeah, I think
it can essentially be a time for you.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely times where you can Black Taunt, and if they've done some setup, it's really cool. If they visit for a card, it's really cool.
Yep.
But overall, just like you were saying early, like a lot of people are gaining angers, and sometimes they sit for a while. So like being able to mill a good amount with the +1, and then you get a draw mill is
especially like if you have a wall breaker stuck on him, because that's what happened to Dave. I had him wall breakered at 4 anger, so then I'm like, well, now I just have access to taunts like forever for high mill. So it was really strong.
Yeah, I think for your black decks, if you're running it, 100% consider Black Taunt. I know I was running Black Pycon today, and after I played it a few times, definitely could see it going to a 3 of.
Black Taunt should be a 3 of in every Mischievous deck.
Yeah.
Like, it synergizes so well with the Mastery. Yeah. Then going on to Black Schematics. Ryan gives me a lot of crap for this card because he says it's not good. This card is really good in this deck.
This card itself, with the level 1, is probably one of the best cards in the deck.
Yeah, so gaining 3 anger on your level 1 just to shoot off, even if your opponent doesn't have a drill, or being at 3 anger, saying, I'm going to Schematics, I'm going to level, and I'm going to steal your drill. So if you're up against, and you hate playing against orange decks, Schematics their checkup drill, go search for a block, and then force them to answer their checkup drill. Like, that's so strong. Otherwise, it's, I have Rejuve too. Like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. The bigger part as well is that 3 endurance. It's like, sneakily. I saw you in I don't know if I think it was the Kami game, I think, where you basically threw a bunch of endurance back on top of your deck.
So that I didn't die?
Schematics was like 2 of the 3 cards. Yep. So that 3 endurance is super impactful and helps your deck stay alive as well. So
for sure.
Pretty good.
Then Black Command. So this card fell off a lot when it got errated. And change to there, you have to banish it.
Yeah.
But being able to level outside of combat is enormous. Like, this deck wants to level. It does not want to be stuck on its lower levels. So being able to level without your opponent being able to answer it is really, really strong. I did this against Ryan's brother last night.
Yeah.
I stole ball 7 and then stacked 3 commands going into my turn. I'm like, well, I guess I get a full level. It's really strong. Yeah,
Black Command, just like passive anger is one of the bigger things, and being able to do that with, like, as was saying before, the level 1 against stuff like Tag, Retribution, being able to go get a drills. This does the exact same thing, but it does it way better.
Yep. Then going on to Tug of War, so this card looks real weird. I understand that. I don't like having to run this card, but it's 2 endurance, so it kind of makes it a little bulky for us, which is nice. 2 anger, black as a black deck, we don't have a lot of anger control. And I identified very quickly when I built this deck is this deck has 1 hard counter. Blue tag for Master Roshi Ally. Master Roshi Ally says no to this deck. So I needed an answer, and that card countered this deck so hard that I needed to devote 2 spots to it.
Yeah. Pretty self-explanatory from there. And then we'll move on to the card number 60 in the deck. One of the worst cards this time, I guess.
Yeah, I never wanted it in my hand. Like, I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know how. It's like, it's time. Like, play time. Like, for all honesty, just play it.
Just don't be bad like Ryan over here and sometimes forgets it, but like, we'll get past that.
Yeah. The only time that I didn't want time in my hand is when I got Suppressive Strike. I was like, well,
this is bad. Okay, and now we'll move on to the blocks.
So, starting off the blocks, Black Energized Guard. Thank you, FanZ, for this card. This card is so awesome. So, physical block that raises or lowers of the player's anger 1. So, what that means is you raise your anger 1 because we're trying to level. And then it can turn into an energy block if cards have been destroyed from a player's life deck. So, that's Bardock's level 1, Bardock's level 2. Bardock's level 3. All of his levels trigger it. So Bardock's 3. Search your deck for 3. Search your opponent's deck for 3 cards. Oh, my Energized card's now live.
Yeah.
Like, that's so strong. And then raising or lowering your player's anger 1 is never bad. Going on to Knee Catch, Endurance 1, 2 anger. We're trying to level. Very, very cut and dry.
Yep.
Then Black Delay.
These perfection foilies.
What can I say about Black Delay?
What can't you say?
The card is so good. We were originally, I was running it at 2 of, and I had Ball 2 in the deck, and me and Ryan were like, do we need it? Just cut Ball 2, add the 3rd Delay. That card's way too good. And it paid off. Like, this card's really strong if you're worried about, like, Brawly, if you're worried about Goku. This just says, what are you going to do?
I think it's just one of the better cards in Mischievous, period.
Agreed, because you can go Delay, you randomly discard, Mastery, randomly discard, you've now 2 for 1 of them.
Yep.
It's really strong.
So, one of the better ones. And as you can see here, 6 physical blocks, because, I mean, physicals are pretty scary.
Technically 9.
Weak. Yeah, but then we go over here, we have our 9, which also coincide with our lower end 5 true energies.
Yeah, so Black Resistance, just because it says Raise Your Anger 1, has 3 Endurance, makes it real beefy. And then Black Corruption for the anti-anger, mainly, and because on level 2... if you need to, you can discard it to make them discard and banish 2. That's really the only reason that I chose Corruption over, say, whatever other energy blocks Black has.
Speedy Dodge is the
Speedy
one
Dodge would have been the other one that I could have considered, but I feel like if I run Speedy Dodge, I want to run Corruption to combo with it.
Yeah.
But then I lose the endurance from resistance. And it's just, the endurance in this deck was huge today.
Yeah. Speaking of which, with these discard effects, I know one card we mentioned for a bit with Strength Display with our events that was not in here. Strongly considered at least one of them.
I did strongly consider
it was going to be one of these cuts.
Correct, and it was meaning cutting a Tug, and I didn't feel comfortable doing that because of how bad that Roshi ally is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my block lineup. 3/3, the 3 Omni blocks, and then 5 energy blocks. Worked out for me really well. Just the deck is all about identifying the matchup and what your key cards are going to be.
Yep. So with that, events and blocks are covered, and we're going to move on to our planning phase cards.
Going into the planning phase cards of this deck, as you'll notice, this is weird. We're a control deck, but we only run 8 planning phase cards.
Right.
This is strange. So it's really nice that you very rarely will dead draw. And the cards that we're running are too impactful not to run. So starting off with Visiting the Past. It's Visiting the Past. We understand what this does.
Yeah.
But the reason it's so good is because you can defensively visit because you're Bardock and you know what your opponent's planning. You can chess game them, mind game them, you can outthink them, and get the perfect answer. Then going into Black Power Up, another one that you can just work really well with Bardock because you have knowledge. My favorite combo with Black Power Up is Bardock's level 3. Enter combat, destroy 3, skip Black Power Up.
Yep.
You did 6 damage to them, 9 if you count the draw on their next turn, and there's nothing that your opponent could respond with. Like, it's so strong.
Too impactful.
Yeah. Then Black Searching Technique, we needed ways to deal with answers before they ever actually became a problem. So Searching Technique, being able to get rid of like wall breaker answers or Unleashed became really, really important. And that's I had it at 3 of originally, and I cut it down to 2 because 3 felt a little too clunky. 2 has been like a perfect number.
Yeah. And then we move on to one of my favorite cards in any villain control deck is Visage.
Villainous Visage did work for me in the finals. Milling Nick for 10. Just, it forces your opponent to play a completely different game. And when you make your opponent play off of their back foot, when you're a control deck, you've already taken a huge lead. And so they have to answer this card, or they can't attack you, or you're going to punish them. And it gets an anger on Bardock level 2.
Right. Or even worse, people have to enter and know they're going to take it, which is going to punish them really hard.
Yep. And then Ball 7, MVP. Probably one of the most impactful cards in the game still. Biggest swing card. Stacking the top 3 with any of your incredible cards. I felt bad for Nick because I Ball 7'd him and I stacked Black Taunt, Time, Defensive Burst, and there was nothing he could do about it. and then I milled him 3. Also gains an anger on Bardock level 2. That seems to be like a common recurring theme that I like to point out is these random cards give you anger, like that don't necessarily have anger, and it just turns out to be really nice because, like we said, Bardock doesn't want to be on his lower levels.
Right. So we're gonna pan over a little bit. We got a great deck here, and we're gonna wrap this all up with a little bit of strategy and how to succeed with this deck.
So the biggest thing with strategy in this deck is identifying the matchup. That's very key in all control matchups, or all control decks from what I'm learning. I'm not a control player by normal standards.
I am.
But this deck makes you think on a completely different level. You have to be able to outthink your because you're both playing with the same knowledge of your opponent's stuff. Like, your opponent doesn't have any more knowledge than you do. You have more. So you can actually take what you know from them and think 4 or 5 actions ahead and plan for it. So being able to identify your key cards, your leveling is going to be really important. Prioritizing cards that you want to prioritize in this match, in this deck, are going to be your Black Swirls, because there's no reason to never have it unless, like, you're stage locked and then you just feel bad.
Yeah.
Against, like, Brawly, obviously, I'm going to lean hard on my physical blocks and defensive burst. Being able to also then pick apart your opponent's deck from threats. The thing that I learned the fastest with this deck was, once you identify the matchups, you then identify your destruction. Because against certain decks that don't run a lot of attacks, but they run a lot of blocks, well, you kill the attacks that are the problem, and then they literally just can't do anything against you, and you can kind of go a little harder and put the throttle on. Against the more aggressive decks, well, you take apart their blocks, and then, like with Brawly, if he can't block the defensive burst, that means you shut him down for the entire turn. And that can win you the game, which it did. Schematics ends up being real good against Retribution matchups. Again, being able to just steal their checkup drill, getting a block of your own. Yeah. And then
very important.
Yeah, Bardock's powers are synergizing so well with this.
With just mischievous in general.
Yeah, the level 2 turning your mastery into a 2 anger when they draw. I honestly, like, today, I didn't feel comfortable in any matchup. Not because I wasn't comfortable with my deck. I knew that the deck had a bad matchup against everything that I played against today, but I never felt out of the game. Because the power that this deck brings is on another level, like of no deck I've ever personally played before. And you start to think on a completely different level, and eventually it'll just click for you. And then, like I said, you never feel out of a game, even ones that you feel horribly unfavorable in.
Yeah, and overall, I think with that said, I think we can confirm best Mischievous deck.
Yeah, I do believe Bardock is the best Mischievous deck. 17 is good, but I don't feel 17 threatens enough, because the deck can threaten MPPV as well. I have done it before. It forces your opponent to respond, and you can quickly change the throttle on a dime.
Right. So, I think we're pretty much done with that.
Yeah. Everybody who's looking for a really interesting deck to play that's not these kind of meta-defining decks, and you kind of want to just play against them, like even against anger decks. I beat a lot of anger decks today, and I didn't think I was going to. It just takes proper sequencing, which Bardock allows you to play with. And, yeah.
Overall, if you're interested in Mischievous as a mastery, this awesome design of a black mastery, if you're interested in it at all, I tell you to definitely take a shot at Bardock. He's a fun stack to play with. The deck right here that we have is probably one of the best and has been worked on for some time. Yeah. I know it's been mentioned before, but this has been brewing since the Dennis Bowl. So.
Yep. And yeah, if you guys have any questions about the deck, please feel free to reach out to me. I love talking about this deck. I fell in love with this deck from the first time I played it. So I love talking about it. I'd love to hear from you guys. Leave a comment down below. But yeah.